Hello, everybody. Hi, people. How are we doing? I hope you guys are doing incredibly well. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's very early afternoon over here in the UK, and I I'm going to be quite taken up over the next few days. So I'm going to try and publish some stuff, but I might be limited because I'll be out of my studio essentially, and I won't be able to. So I'll be able to write and create, but I'm not sure how much I'll be able to actually record, and probably almost certainly won't be doing live streams for the next week. So I was working on some stuff, and then I came across this video because obviously a big what's happening now is there's an element of panic stations in the UK, and I like that because the one of the good things that's happening since the very avoidable passing of Dr. Arday, I should call it an assassination really, but I don't want to be too alarmist, but really that's what kind of feels like the targeting and unaliving of Dr. Arday. One of the things that's happening in the UK, which hasn't happened for a little while, is I'm seeing a little bit of solidarity amongst black people, and also those who are supportive of the cause as well. So I don't want to say exclusively black people, but there certainly is a degree of solidarity, and that's nice to see. Because to be quite frank, in the run up to his passing, I didn't really see any solidarity, and it was one of the things that I frequently complained about, is how I felt, how easily the general population, including the black populace, were being hoodwinked by what was quite clearly a media smear campaign. Very few people were applying critical thinking, were analyzing this from, from a perspective where they'd actually bothered to take any personal endeavor to actually look behind, or at least look beneath the surface of what was occurring here. And I think what's happening now is, over time, Dr. Arday is being vindicated. Yeah. Dr. Arday is being vindicated over time, and it's more and more is coming out. So one of the things that's come out recently, and I'll share more on this soon, is the 30 marathons in 35 days actually has evidence supporting it in a couple of newspaper articles that were published about this, and has greater details. So remember, I spoke about the fact that they were muting his voice. They were just dogpiling him, compounding rumor, conjecture, scoffing, rumor, conjecture, scoffing, compounding it upon him, and not giving him the right to respond. And it was all in an attempt to make him sound like this entirely incredulous character. And none of it, well, I'm not going to say none of it because that sounds extreme, but I would say they have very little evidence to support other than their own skepticism. And I think what's going to happen over time is Dr. Arday's legacy is going to be intact. He's going to be vindicated, because now what I've seen is many, even of the mainstream news articles and news outlets, are beginning to say he was cleared of the plagiarism. And you didn't hear any of them say that before. It was only like a couple of people. Someone mentioned Dr. Kane Andrews. I quoted him. I learnt this from him, was that he was cleared of the plagiarism. And I could say I didn't understand why they were, purporting the fact that the plagiarism was absolutely a certainty, but I do understand what it is, because they're racist. So they were literally hiding the details of the fact that the plagiarism had been ruled out. He hadn't plagiarized. That was a fact. It had been proven by multiple institutions and individuals that what he was guilty of was not plagiarism, and that Nathan Koffness deliberately falsified essentially what he knew to be true, and withheld important details from news outlets. But then obviously the news outlets were more than happy to pick up his white supremacist talking points, because it made them feel better about themselves. Ali Bernard says vile, vile, vile creatures, the lot of them. Absolutely. That's entirely my sentiment. They are a disgusting, disgusting sect of humanity that we unfortunately have to share the world with. And I'm actually going to just quickly full screen these two miserable lizards on the screen right now. These two disgusting, vile, impudent, like these people are, they make me sick, because that's what we're here on this. And I don't want this to take too much of a negative turn, but the reality is I saw this and initially I was encouraged, because I was like, oh, it sounds like an apology. It's retract. It sounds like they're going to backstep and they're going to admit some liability and fault into this. And the reality is I got 10 minutes into listening to this and it made me feel sick. And I thought to myself, I need to make this a learning opportunity for us as a community, for those of you who don't know how truly vile the British media is. So we're going to watch this apology, this cowardly, cowering and snide, total lack of accountability that you get from these unaccomplished toffs, these vile received pronunciation speaking idiots who like to portray themselves as though they're something to be, you know, something to be esteemed, something to be aspired to, but they themselves have done nothing. And they're going to sit there and act like they have the right to critique Dr. Arday, who is more accomplished in every facet of life than them. These are lovely. Thank you, Big Thinker. I like that. Reptilian scumbags. That's what these people are. So unfortunately, I'm going to, if you stick with me, I'm going to ruin your afternoon somewhat, because we're going to play back this Telegraph non-apology, because this is what this is. It's a total non-apology. And in addition to that, they don't even have the cowards. Sorry, they don't even have the kahunas. Excuse me. They don't even have the kahunas to turn the comments on. This is complete and utter cowardice. They turn the comments off. You can see there, comments are turned off. Okay. So they're going to sit here after they've posted dozens of smear campaigns and total hack jobs on the character of Dr. Arday. But then when they come and they post their shitty little non-apology, they turn the comments off. Shout out Chill Black. How you doing, my brother? I saw you. Well, I saw most of your some of your live stream yesterday. It was really good. Appreciate you. Appreciate the support and the solidarity that you're showing, and we're showing the world that we can come around together as Black British creators, researchers, and make a difference. So I appreciate you, brother. And yeah, I've struggled getting through this. To be honest with you, I don't know if I'm going to get through this video without you guys, because this is how I'm disgusted at how vile these creatures are. So I'm ready now for you guys to see this, and I want you to see this, because we're gonna have to cook these idiots, these disgusting idiots, and they're still lying. They'll take their lies to their graves. I mean, look at this witch's face. Look at her face. Look at this witch's face. It's the face of an unrepentant witch. And I know none of you guys want to watch this, but the Telegraph, I have to say this, was one of the top, if not the top outlets in terms of the number of articles they produce. So the apology from them needs to be the greatest. They literally have blood on their hands. I published a video yesterday entitled Blood on Their Hands, literally, yeah. And the Telegraph are the top, right at the top of my news outlets that I believe have blood on their hands, because what they did is, like I said, paramount to criminal negligence. Okay, I think my camera's about to turn off. It does this every now and then. I don't know why it's doing that. God, it's so annoying. But anyway, yeah, what they did is paramount to criminal negligence. It's really something quite annoying. And anyway, without further ado, I do want to get into this video now. I'll turn my camera on shortly for those of you who are missing my gorgeous chops. I'm just joking. I'll turn my camera on shortly, but I want to get into this video now, and I'm giving you a trigger warning early. And I'm trigger warning you not because there's going to be gore, not because there's going to be any sexually explicit content, but because these two individuals are so cumulatively vile, you might throw up. I might throw up at how horrible these people are. But once again, I just want to re-emphasize that it's my belief, and I'm going to, yeah, it's my belief, and it's certainly everything points to and indicates the fact that Dr. Jason Arday is going to be vindicated over time. He's going to be vindicated of the accusations that are made. He's already been vindicated of the plagiarism and all the attempts at calling him a liar and exaggerator. I think they're going to have to U-turn on those over time. And then when that happens, we have to start casting the net wider. At the moment, the only person who I really want to take out of commission is Nathan Coffness. So the petition that I've started against Nathan Coffness, I'm going to pin. In fact, let me do that before we start the video. I'm going to pin the petition to the top of the chat. So you all have an opportunity to please jump in and sign that petition. Okay. I want to get Nathan Coffness out of commission as someone who has really any kind really Nathan Coffness has no business being in academia. He's a white supremacist, and he's a eugenicist, and he's a Zionist, so he has no business being in academia. Okay, so I'm kind of like, I'm holding back nothing in regards to the fact that I do want to end his career. Okay, as an educator. He has no business educating people. It's like, and people are like, oh, that's wrong. Isn't that the same thing? So no, it's not the same thing, because Dr. Arday didn't threaten anyone with what he taught. Dr. Arday didn't exclude last sects of society. Dr. Arday wasn't trying to push eugenics. Dr. Arday wasn't trying to push ethnic cleansing. Nathan Coffness is pushing all of those agendas. He'd probably like us to return back to a time when people who look like me were enslaved. Nathan Coffness needs to be taken out of the educational system. So yes, I am pushing towards that. And yes, we as a community need to do what we can to get rid of him. So I'm going to share the link as soon as I can blooming well find it. Excuse me, let me find it 1 second. It is a change. Is it here? Yes, it is. Here it is. So we're at 897 signatures. So we're fastly approaching 1,000 signatures, which will be a great point. I think what we'll do at 1,000 signatures is we'll get this over to the CPS. So we'll get in the UK, we'll get the CPS's attention. We'll get this over to the CPS. And then once we've breached that point, that's when we start seeing what we can put together, even if it, in terms of maybe raising a fund towards getting this guy fully investigated. And I think he's exposed himself substantially. That's my personal perspective. I think he's exposed himself substantially in the various online chats that he's done, the various interviews he's done. He's made it clear that he's been spreading misinformation. He's made it clear that he's been harassing, and he could be culpable for even manslaughter in this case. So we're going to do our best to make sure that we get justice for Dr. Jason Arday in this case. We're not going to take this lying down. He's not going to go and continue enjoying his tenure at Ghent University, where he is right now. I think it's in Belgium or something like that. Oh no, we're going to make sure that you pay for your crimes, Nathan Coffness. I want to make that very, very clear. So I've put the link in the chat, and I'm going to just pin that message. So if you join the chat join this live stream at whatever point and you haven't signed it, make sure you just click and you sign that petition. That's going to be the first step to the removal of Nathan Coffness from the entire educational system, which is where we want to be headed. But anyway, that being said, on that note, let's get the screen back on and let's start watching this horrendous non-apology by these horrendous individuals. When it starts playing, by the way, guys, you know the deal. Just put the 1 in the chat if you can hear it playing fine, and put 2 if there's any audio issues.
Professor Jason Arday's closest academic colleagues claim that he was hounded to death by the media.
How much self-reflection is required of Tim and I and our fellow journalists, and how much responsibility must Cambridge take?
I have not.
Spoiler alert, no self-reflection. and you'll see that. Thank you, Tim, for letting me know.
Commented over the weekend because it's not about me, and I wanted to think and wait before saying something. What I did do was go to confession, because when I heard the news, I felt very bad about it and ashamed of some of the things that I had said. Looking back on what I said about,
and he should feel ashamed, because this guy's calling card during this entire affair was mockery. That's what he would do. He'd occasionally have these moments where his conscience would kick in, and he'd be like, I could probably hear the voice in his head saying, why am I being so deriding towards this individual? But then his role and his position would ultimately overtake, and he'd go back to his outright mockery. Once again, if you've seen the previous live streams I've done, all of their claims and accusations, they never support them with anything. It's just, that sounds like it couldn't have happened, so we're going to mock it like it definitely didn't happen, and it's definitely a lie. Everything that they brought as an accusation against Dr. Jason Arday were never substantiated. It was always hunches, scoffing, and conjecture, like I've said over and over again.
About Jason Arday in the last couple of weeks. I think our newspaper just reported, but I'm not just a reporter, I'm a commentator. And I can't deny that I told jokes. I was cruel. I didn't think about the human being himself.
You did say we do need to be very careful here, because there's a vulnerable human being at the heart of it.
And I just want to just make a note about this witch, who doesn't repent for anything. One of the things that she does do is she makes it very clear that he has nothing to feel sorry about. He did his best in terms of being in terms of his journalistic integrity, and he didn't do any of that. Let me just give a quick, I just want to read the comment that's been left by Obsidian Kitty, because this is really interesting, okay? And I'd like to research this further. She says, Cofness's research at Cambridge was funded by the multinational Unilever, which owns several black hair care brands. Now, first of all, I wouldn't be surprised about that, because there's only a few kind of like organizations that are involved in research, and many of you will know that Unilever is one of them. There are a few brands that literally own everything when it comes to what we consume our bodies, and that's what we put on and put in our bodies. Many of these organizations like Unilever cross over everything from inoculations and I'm not going to say that V word, but you know what I'm talking about, inoculations and V's, to food that we consume, to products that we put in our hair, and skincare. They do all of them. So you've got Unilever, you've got Kraft, you've got Sara Lee, you've got Johnson & Johnson's, and they all cross over all of these verticals. It's very creepy. It's very creepy, because like, wait a second, you're doing my health care. Oh, I didn't mention pharmaceuticals. So I'm like, wait a second, you're giving me a chocolate gâteau, and then you're giving me the diabetes medicine. Do you understand what I'm saying? They all have these like weird verticals where they do everything. They produce everything. So I'm not surprised about that. And I'm sure you guys know as well, there's a recent thing that came out about, no, it's not that recent, but maybe I just started paying attention to it recently, about black women's hair products and them being coated in carcinogenics. And it's totally unnecessary. There's no reason for them to be there. So the only reason that they're there is that these people are deliberately trying to poison black women. There's been a big expose on it. It's kind of like, why are black women's hair products being coated in carcinogenics deliberately? Like it's an additive. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay, we've finished doing it, now let's coat it in poison. Like there's a sickness that's going around this world, and it's an anti-black sickness, and it's important that we're aware that this is the case. Okay, on that note, let me continue. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. But this woman is really vile.
Tim, I had a very strange night on Friday, because I went to see Oliver at the Gielgud Theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue. and it kept on being plagued by the alert.
Oh, yes.
Even if people silenced their phones, it still rang out. And initially we thought, oh, there's some kids playing with some kind of Simon Says of 2026 behind us. And then it soon emerged that people who had been switching on and off from airplane mode had basically sounded this alert. And then
Right.
Fagin had to make a joke about it in the middle of Oliver, and actually did it quite well and said, Oliver.
So what she's talking about there is over the weekend there were some fires across the UK. I think in West Midlands, so in kind of like that's like central England. There were forest fires, but then they ended up spreading into major cities. So quite a lot of people lost their houses. It's something that we don't really see, but we've been having this kind of quite extreme heat wave all across Europe. And so now fires have started, but that's not the main news story, although I do send my condolences to everybody who lost their properties or anything like that. The main news story was that these alerts, these involuntary alerts that the government send to your phone. Now, I've made sure that I turn all that stuff off. I'm just like, respectfully, I don't need the government to send me, and then people say stuff to you like, oh, but what if you're out and a hurricane comes from above and sucks you up? It's like, I don't need the government being able to access my phone whenever it feels like and interrupt what I'm doing, because that's obviously the first step to them being able to remotely disable my phone or to remotely do other things with my phone. I prefer that they don't have any access to do anything. If the price to pay for me having that turned off is walking down the street one day and then being swept up by a forest fire that I didn't see coming, or being swept up by a tsunami, then hey, look, it was my time to go. Yeah, it was my time to go. I don't want the government sending me crap. Yeah. So I have made every attempt to turn that off. I still got the alert. So somehow they've backdoored it. I feel like it was during an update. They might have put it in without asking you when they just kind of give you the list of updates. So I got the alert, and that really, really peed me off. Kind of like, I don't want your alerts. I don't want you to have access to my phone. I don't want you to be able to just like interrupt what I'm doing. Like, respectfully, F off. You know what I mean? You don't get to just tell me what, like, you do. I don't watch the news. I don't read your newspapers. There's a deliberate wall that I put up between myself and, mainstream / centralized authority, because when you don't have that wall put up, it's stuff like this that you fall for. Yeah, you'll find the people who fell for this are the ones who are regular consumers of this BS. The ones who actually were able to immediately see what was going on are the people who probably decide, I'm not going to consume that crap, And that's 100% Kieran. I would literally, I would rather burn, like, it's fine. It's fine. Like, if my senses are that dulled that I was the only person that doesn't see the fire coming, it's my time to go anyway. Like, when your survival instincts reach a plateau, like you know what I mean, reach that level, it's time for you to go. When you meet these people and they got no survival instincts, you watch these online videos. There's one video of a woman like walking into the middle of the ocean, and then she gets hit with a wave, and then she just all of a sudden she's just sitting there. She's like, oh well, I'm gonna die, and these men have to come and drag her out of the ocean. It's kind of like, no, it's time. It's your time to go. Yeah, you've got. It's a wrap. If you can't get up. Sorry, let me carry on. It's my stupid sense of humor.
Being woken up by an alarm. So I didn't have my phone on throughout the whole of the theatrical performance. I left to a missed call from you, and the news broke that Jason Arday had died. And you and I had a chat about it while I was under the bright lights of the big city. And of course, my initial reaction was one of great sorrow. And it then quickly turned to a degree of self-reflection.
I don't believe her. I don't believe it was a situation. I don't think she felt great sorrow. And you're going to see why shortly.
Have we covered this story correctly? Have we been fair and proportionate in our approach?
The fact that she has to ask that question, had we covered this story correctly? Like, now, bear in mind, this has been published 17 hours ago. So they've seen the numerous collations showing the media, the disproportionate media coverage. She knows that her outlet, for instance, I think did over 100. I think it was between 1 and 200 articles about this topic in a 22-day span. And I think they did a majority of those after he had already resigned. She knows that's the organization that she works for, and she knows that she's probably responsible for maybe a dozen of those. Yeah, she's aware of this. So the fact that she's saying, "Oh, I had to reflect. Like, had we treated this in the right way?" No. The fact that you're saying you had to ask yourself the question proves that you're disingenuous. Because the immediate thing is, what you should be saying is, I had to reflect on the fact that we did too much. We overreacted. We should not have done that many articles. She can't even bring herself to say this. It gets worse.
Are we in some way to blame? Which is feelings that you can have about such stories. The media had to do precisely the same after Caroline Flack took her own life. And we don't yet know precisely.
And Caroline Flack is someone who I mentioned prior to, if you were on the live streams, many times prior to Dr. Jason Arday, unfortunately being found unalived. We don't know the circumstances yet, so I'm not going to say taking his own life, because at the moment that bridge, that's up for speculation until we get firm feedback from the coroner. But the point being that anybody who had a conscience saw the parallels before the act took place. That's what we do as human beings. Yeah, that's what separates us from animals. Our sentience allows us to actually predict. Our sentience allows us to make choices. Our sentience gives us a will and a conscience. So we can see before something occurs what might occur. And that's what makes us be able to classify ourselves as a good or a rotten human being. So if you identify before it occurs, actually, we've seen a pattern of this. I work in the media. A few years ago, we did this to Caroline Flack and she took her own life. Yeah. And they've done this multiple times. A few years ago, we done this to Princess Diana and it resulted in her being unalived. And you could go on and on and on for times when the media has just been disproportionately dogpiling on someone, and it results in that person losing their life. You had that opportunity when he was alive, because I'm not in the media, but if I was able to see it, you definitely saw it, and you chose to not care. You chose to ignore it, and you chose to carry on doing what you're doing. So please save us this self-righteous, reflective contemplation bullshit. Yes, save it, because we don't believe you. You're a liar. You're a liar.
Precisely what has happened, but the police are saying that they are not treating his death as suspicious. And even before coming into the studio, we've been debating, shall we discuss this? Because you then feel that those who have accused the media of a so-called feeding frenzy, that we're just continuing to feed on the story. But I think as we spoke about him in life, then it's only...
Can you hear the irony of this as well? We contemplated talking about this because they've said we had a freedom frenzy. And so is it worse that we keep what you didn't care when he resigned? Don't just suddenly now stop. Yeah. But what you should be doing is saying, okay, we profited immensely as an organization and they made immense amounts of profit from these articles. And that's one of the things that's not spoken about. It's not just their hatred and their wickedness and their lack of a conscience and their inhumanity. It's also the fact that this is a profitable venture for them to drag someone through the mud. It's like opium for the masses. Yeah, when they see someone getting dragged, the British public love nothing more than to see someone get publicly flailed and or lynched. It's what it is very, very, it's an insatiable lust for them. It's an insatiable craving to have more and more of it. So on the one hand, they're happy to do that, but then when he passes away and they know they might be brought into some level of disrepute, all of a sudden becomes a question mark. Oh, well, maybe we should not talk about it anymore. It's distasteful. Oh, how convenient. Oh, wait a second, let's just have a quick look here. Scroll up, comments turned off. So you're approaching this with all the integrity of a Nazi, respectfully.
Right, that we should speak about him in death and address some of the criticisms of the media coverage of this. And let's be honest, the Telegraph did do an entire investigation. We weren't the only ones to cover this story.
She's calling it an investigation. the temerity of the fact that she calls what the Telegraph, you didn't investigate anything, because it didn't take me 5 minutes of investigating to note that the plagiarism claims are false. It would have taken you maybe a few days of investigating to note that a lot of the stuff that you were scoffing were actually provable. What you did was not an investigation, it was a hack job. Please stop using these ridiculous euphemisms in an attempt to reframe your position, which was smear and smut. That's what you were publishing, smear and smut. Yeah, we call it online slop. Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're creating online slop for the masses. So respectfully, don't try and reframe it now like you were doing some public service. Oh, you know, we didn't tight investigate. You didn't investigate nothing, you stupid, lazy little cow.
Story. The Times Higher Educational Supplement covered it. The Guardian covered it. Independent journalists covered it. The whole media covered this.
Well, Lord Woolley, the principal of Homerton College in Cambridge, said that the 41-year-old academic had been subjected to, quote, the most horrendous, toxic, vicious witch hunt, and that he felt hounded to death. So I have not commented over the weekend because it's not about me.
Because you're guilty of some of the most horrendous mockery that I saw Dr. Jason Arday's reputation had to endure. But let you continue.
And I wanted to think and wait before.
And just shout out to Kieran as well. I noted that. Notice her justifications now. It's like, oh, we weren't alone. We weren't alone in the Telegraph. We were amongst a panel of vile outlets that also said disgusting things about him. It wasn't just us. So that's the justification now. So the excuse making is kind of hidden within this as well.
Saying something. What I did do was go to confession, because when I heard the news, I felt very bad about it and ashamed of some of the things that I had said.
And what he should have done, if he had any integrity, if he had any morals, is let those feelings sit. Yeah? Feeling bad about something. And I'm going to explain this for a reason, because you're going to see, unfortunately, this is going to get explained away. I'm going to give this man now the definition of a conscience. Okay? So listen, Tim, I'm going to give you some. A conscience is you do something bad. What happens is Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder goes, hey, that was the wrong thing to do. Okay, then your conscience kicks in and you go, that was the wrong thing to do. I am sorry. I feel guilty. I contributed to this. It was not my intention for this to be the outcome, but I'm going to learn from this mistake. I am so sorry that I did this wrong thing. Okay, we've all done it. Okay, I did my little bit of bullying when I was in high school. Okay, we've all done stuff that we think back about and we go, oh, I wish I hadn't behaved in that way. It's called a conscience. Okay, what you shouldn't do is justify your wrongdoing. Let me quickly read out Kieran's donation. Thank you very much for your $5, but by the way, and if you feel like you're enjoying or being informed by the content, please feel free to support the channel. Wasn't this the dude that was giddy with pleasure last week? Yes, I'm assuming you meant pleasure there. Him and the other turd, now he's gone to confession, so it's all right, I suppose. Yeah, he was giddy, more than giddy. Him and that other turd from that channel, Spiked. I think the two of them were sitting down, being the right little giddy partners. He's so dumb. He's stupid. Stupid black man. They never use those words. I'm obviously being hyperbolic there. I'm just summarizing the kind of how happy they were. Yeah, I mean, it's like these things don't have, these people do not have any conscience. It's very, very clear. I think, actually, not to get it confused, I'm not sure. Yes, he was. I think he was with that guy from Spiked. And I think, but definitely, he definitely has an interview. In fact, let me not get my wires crossed. Spiked was another thing. I don't want to misinform people here. He had an interview with Kathleen Stock, who did the hit piece article on Jason Arday. And that is one of the most vile videos I've seen. Because Kathleen Stock is sitting there, not just discrediting Jason Arday, because I think she also knew that the plagiarism claims were false. So her kind of method of attack was to say how rubbish his books were and how worthless they were and how meaningless they were. It's like kind of like, well, that's all subjective. You do realize that. You do realize that he has a book deal because there are hundreds of thousands of people who's read his work who beg to differ. They think it's valuable. Yeah, just because, you know, things he talks about in terms of Black culture don't appeal to you, it doesn't give you the right to completely undermine it and then say, oh, it was rubbish. It's like, not being funny, but a white British person scoffing at Black culture. Oh, that's original. That's original. I don't get it. Yeah, you're not supposed to get it. You don't have any flavor. Yeah, respectfully. Yeah, you're sauceless. Yeah, you're not supposed to get it. You put raisins in your potato salad. Yeah, we're not. It's okay. We do things differently. The difference between you and I is I'm not going to pick up one of your dry novels, yeah, that you really think is great, or one of your dry bits of academia, you know, talking about some crap. It's like, you know, some crappy poet from back in the day and be like, oh my gosh, this is so profound. It's kind of cool. I don't get it. You get it. Cool. You enjoy that crap. I'll enjoy my culture. Yeah, that's what we do. We agree to get along. We don't sit there trying to undermine some culture that we have no investment in. That's just despicable. That makes you a despicable human being. And you guys do not realize that you are despicable human beings. That's what you are. Let's carry on.
And going to confession for me is partly a means of trying to figure out how I feel, what I've really done, and what is my responsibility. And in that conversation with the priest, I don't want to give too much of it away. He very wisely said, you can't apologize for what you're not responsible for. And in a way, that's narcissistic, right?
What in the flying cope? First of all, don't tell us your priest's name. Yeah. Yeah. Don't dox your priest, for the love of God. Yeah. Priest, if you're watching this, yeah, you're an idiot. I don't have any respect for the clergy anyway, particularly the Roman Catholic one, because of the crimes they've committed in the UK. Yeah. We've all grown up knowing the astronomically high likelihood that men of the clergy, particularly the Roman Catholic clergy, what they do in their spare time. Yeah, so no need to go there. But listen, priest, you're an idiot. To turn around to someone and say you can't feel guilty for that which you didn't commit is absolutely ludicrous. Let me quickly reframe this in a way that makes sense. If you're in a school, yeah, and you cyberbully a child till that child self-deletes, which is something that we all agree happens a lot, yeah? This is something that is endemic in Western culture, for children to be bullied to the point where they self-delete. You don't turn around to the cyberbully who made that person's life a living hell and say, you can't feel guilty about that which you couldn't do. No one could have predicted that this person would have done it. No, you say, yeah, you should feel guilty. What you did was vile and horrible. And you need to make sure that even if you don't pay for this crime with your freedom or your life, you should feel really bad about what you did. It was horrible. You need to apologize to the family. You need to apologize to the children. You need to apologize to the community. Tim, I'm talking to you. You owe an apology to his family. You owe an apology to his kids. You owe an apology to his community. You owe an apology to his subjects at Cambridge University. You need to apologize, you disgusting human being. Yeah, I don't know what kind of useless priest you have who says you only need to, you only need to feel guilty if you push the knife in or something stupid like that. This is this whole non-accountability world that we share with, respectfully, mostly these insecure white males who are like white nationalists who just want freedom of speech to abuse people. Yeah. Freedom of speech to abuse people. It's kind of like, no, there's accountability for your words. You don't have to be the person that pulls the trigger to be guilty of the crime. How about you start having some accountability for the message you put out there, for the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that you reached, Tim, that went on to write comments and or harass the Ardays and to make his life a living hell. You are responsible. You should feel guilty, and you are a piece of shit. To be clear.
you're not directly responsible for someone taking their own life. You're not responsible for the things that went wrong in his life, such as the stories and the exaggerations, or the college appointing him, or perhaps failing to support him.
Holy cope. Holy cope. You're not responsible for the stories that you haven't substantiated, but you proliferated. You're not responsible for the college appointing him rightly because he was qualified for the position, but you made it sound like it. Everything you're saying is condemning you even further and shows you've learned nothing.
So if you feel bad, and feeling bad is a good thing, it's like an emergency alarm going off in your conscience. It's your mind telling you something's not right.
It's your mind telling you you've done something wrong, Tim. Yeah. If you feel bad, this is how everyone else's humanity works. If you feel bad, this is what he says. If you feel bad, it's an alarm bell telling you something's wrong. It's like a spidey sense. And what it's telling you is might be some danger on the way. So that guilt is not actually evidence that you've done anything wrong. It's just, maybe there's things around you that need to be. No, Tim, that's not how guilt works. Feeling bad, we have a word for it in the English language. It's called guilt. And you feel guilt when you are guilty of something. So you felt bad because what you had done was contributed to this person no longer being here. Why are you trying to reframe psychology all of a sudden? Why are you trying to change it? Like guilt is some magic thing, and you're informing us about what kind of Tim says it, like, what can we do about these people? We're having to share a planet with these people who will go through these kind of mental gymnastics to get over the feeling of guilt. It's absolutely shocking.
It's like physical pain tells you there's something wrong with you. A feeling of guilt tells you should be doing something you're not, or you're doing something you shouldn't.
Or you've done something wrong. That's primary guilt. Guilt, I've done something wrong, now I feel bad about it. Really simple here, Tim. Shouldn't be struggling.
So you have to figure out precisely what is it I have done and take ownership of it and then fix that. So looking back on what I said about Jason Arday in the last couple of weeks, I think our newspaper just reported, but I'm not just a reporter, I'm a commentator. And
he just said his newspaper just reported. I've made it very, very clear. In fact, anyone can make it very, very clear that firstly, the newspaper are culpable because what they reported was incorrect. They didn't report, they regurgitated easily falsifiable findings from a quack. Okay, you took the words of a pseudoscientific, proven racist, proven eugenicist, proven Zionist crackpot who has been fired from the said university, who had students write a petition for his removal. 58 complaints from students, even though they were trying to get Jason Arday on that and they couldn't find one. And then 1,200 signed a petition to have him removed from his post. So you've got someone who has no credibility as an academic, who's had papers removed, by the way, as an academic as well. No credibility as an academic. You've taken his word, you've reported that, and then you've embellished on these reports. That makes you 100% culpable. And there's nothing that you guys did that had any credibility to it.
I can't deny that I told jokes. I was cruel. I didn't think about the human being himself.
Well, you did actually, because you did say on that, just to stop you for a second, you did say on this podcast while I was on holiday and I was listening to it, you did say, we do need to be very careful here because there's a vulnerable human being at the heart of it.
And you did one thing,
and to be clear, he did say that. The problem with those disclaimers, I'm going to call it a disclaimer, is if in the run up to that, you've just been mocking the man, and then you make the statement, which is very cogent and true, and it's a true statement. That statement alone should be the point at which you terminate that line of inquiry and say, we've said enough. We've published enough. We're done now on this because there is a vulnerable man at this and I'm going to stop. But you made the statement and then you carried on doing what you were doing. So it's entirely irrelevant. It means you didn't believe what you said, or you didn't care enough about what you said for it to adjust or to change your behavior. So her saying, "Oh well, you said that," it's like it's like turning up to as one of the SS, yeah, and they're in a camp, in a sea camp, and you know what I mean. You turn on the gas, it's like, and it's like, guys, I don't think we, there's people in there. Should we? Yeah, and then you turn it back on. That's what it's like. It's irrelevant. You making that, declaring that is entirely irrelevant because it didn't adjust your behavior. You carried on doing what you were doing before. So what's the point in even mentioning it?
Approach it in quite a, if I can use the word, Christian manner.
Well, and one thing I regret is not following my instincts, because I also said privately, editorially, we need to be very careful about this man. It wasn't a racist story, but it was inevitably a racial story. Because had he been black and an academic at Aberystwyth, it wouldn't have received so much coverage.
Yes.
Had he been white and an academic at Cambridge, it wouldn't have received so much coverage. But because he was presented to us...
So straight there, he's just contradicted himself. Yeah, he just literally contradicted himself. It wasn't a racist story, but it was a racial story. Because had he been black in Aberystwyth, it wouldn't have created so much hype. So that's his way of saying it's not about race. It's about the institution. And then he goes on to say, but had he been white in Cambridge, it wouldn't have created this much hype. So he's saying, it is about race, but it's just because he's black and in this institution. My friend, that's what makes it a racist story. Is your brain so defunct that you can't work that out, that you need someone to spell that out for you? Yeah, it's the fact that he's black and in that institution. Because in the same way, it wouldn't have been a story if he was black and in Aberystwyth University. You could say the same thing as if he was white in Aberystwyth University. The point that you've made very, very clear is if he was white and in any institution, this wouldn't be a story. Therefore, it 100% is a racist story. Okay, you've just admitted that. White people doing the same behavior in any institution, it would not have made the news. Wouldn't have made the news. And that's not even mentioning the fact that the entire false narrative was created by a white supremacist. And your institution, your publication picked it up regardless. You didn't care about the source. It didn't bother you that this was coming from a white supremacist. It didn't bother you that he was not a trustworthy individual. It didn't bother you that he was an academically disgraced individual. You ran with it anyway. So you're just like, there's nothing, everything you're saying here is fluff and stupidity. And now from the sentence I've just said, it sounds like he's about to blame DEI. Oh, well, he was presented to us as this. First of all, this whole idea of there being this massive fanfare when Jason Arday was presented to Cambridge, or Cambridge presented him, there wasn't this massive fanfare. There was like maybe 1 or 2 news outlets covered it. It wasn't that big. It wasn't massive news. Most people don't even remember it when it occurred. Okay. In fact, news outlets probably made a point of not really covering the stories because, like, who wants to make a big deal about Cambridge's youngest professor being a black person? It was covered by the BBC maybe and a couple of, but it wasn't like made this massive fanfare. You're trying to paint out like this has been going on for 3 years. No, we only know about this now because of the hate you're putting on his name. To be clear, when he was hired, no one wanted to talk. Well, there wasn't that many people talking about him. I don't remember there being a plethora of Telegraph articles covering him being hired. So respectfully, this coping is just disgusting. If you've just arrived, please sign the petition to have Nathan Coffness brought to justice. The link is being pinned in the comments.
Almost like a mascot of people of color achieving at Cambridge. That's why it became a referendum in people's minds.
Why? Okay, so let's even take their argument. Let's say he was a mascot for people achieving at Cambridge. So what? Why does that bother you? Why should you be angry about that? Now, obviously, we know he wasn't a mascot. He earned his position. He earned it well. He was already a professor. He moved from one professorship to another. He wasn't even promoted to take the role. We know all of this, okay? We know that he didn't plagiarize. We know he didn't. But even if everything you said was true and he was promoted and it was more of a mascot position, so what? So what? Why does that deserve you dogpiling all this hatred upon him? Dude, that sounds to me like you needed DEI to fail. You needed to be made an example of. And that was an excuse for you to not do your due diligence, for you to not do your usual checks, for you to not follow journalistic integrity, and to be this complete shit show of dogpiling and hatred that you've been putting on for the past 3 weeks.
On DEI.
Yes.
And in retrospect, even though that is a legitimate thing to be angry about.
Once again, I talk about white male anger all the time. Why is that a thing to be angry about? Any white people, because I know I've probably got like at least 10 white males in the chat. Can you explain to me why that's legitimate thing to be angry about? Let's say he has been hired as a part of a EDI policy, because we don't have DEI here. And the fact that a Telegraph journalist who claims he's very knowledgeable is using an American term and a policy that doesn't exist in the UK, which is I've mentioned over and over again, is EDI, and the biggest beneficiaries of EDI are white women by a long shot, by a country mile. So the people who actually benefit from equality, diversity, and inclusion are white women. Black people are actually the smallest beneficiaries when it comes to, like, we're tiny beneficiaries, and mostly it doesn't exist. So it's not even like America's DEI, where where it actually has kind of like a tangible, calculable impact on hiring policies. In the UK, it's just kind of like advisory guidelines that most people don't even follow. Most people don't even follow. Like in the last 10, 20, 15 years, most UK organizations had already reversed most of their EDI policies. They don't even follow them. They don't care. There's plenty of organizations in the UK that are all white. It's not like a crime over here. It's not a crime over here. You'll go to big organizations in central London that will have, 1,000 employees and not a single one of them will be black. So please stop acting like, and it's worse in academia. So he's talking about, it's right to be angry about it. Why? Why is it right to be angry about it? Why would it anger you? Does it anger you when you see women being promoted to position of professorship? Is that right to be angry about as well? If they had a policy to say, let's get some more female professors in here because this white male slongfest is getting boring. Let's get some women in here. Would that anger you as well? You sound like a pathetic individual. Every time they talk about being angry, about opening the door to other people, it makes them sound pathetic to me. Maybe that's just me.
It wasn't fair that one individual ended up carrying the burden for all of people like me wanting to see that system ridiculed and changed. So the thing that I concluded at the end.
Did you hear that? So he wants to see the system ridiculed and changed. So first of all, he speaks about a policy we don't have called DEI. And then he talks about it making him angry. And then he talks about him wanting to see it ridiculed and changed. What has he been through in life that EDI has caused him so much dislike for it? Like I mean, I'm trying to rationalize and I'm trying to pathologize his hatred for something that has had no negative impact on his life. Does it anger him so much that black people also get employment in the UK? Like, why does he want to see it ridiculed? What is being revealed here is this man is mentally unstable. I think he's mentally ill. My camera's about to cut out, it looks like, unfortunately. Very annoying. Sorry about that, guys. What's very clear here is this man is mentally unstable. I think he's mentally unwell. Because for him to have such a vehement disgust and a vehement hatred for a policy that has had no negative impact on his life, and I'm going to tell you right now, as a black Brit, the EDI policies in the UK have had zero negative impact on the white male population. I will say it once again. The EDI policies in the UK have had zero negative impact on the white population here. Zero negative impact. It's probably have a net positive impact for the hiring of females. But in terms of the black population, we have seen nothing from these EDI policies. And he's sitting there saying he wants it to be ridiculed. What a vile human being. Or maybe he's not vile. Someone in the comments, let me know, why are white men so angry and want to see EDI ridiculed? Tell me about I want to hear a personal story from a white person that's not purely based on conjecture, where they saw the direct impact of EDI and it had a negative effect on their life. Okay, that's what I want to see.
End of my confession, I had done wrong was to forget the human being.
Yes.
And the pledge that I have made as part of my reparation is to try in future to remember the person. And I genuinely, by the way, think that sarcasm, satire, and irony serve a social purpose.
Of course.
They puncture ridiculous people and they bring people down to earth.
So he's just talked about the fact that satire, sarcasm, etc., puncture ridiculous people. Jason Arday wasn't ridiculous. You're ridiculous. You're making it clear that you're ridiculous, literally with every single statement that you're making. You are the ridiculous person who feels the need to destroy and ridicule DEI, which is a policy we don't even have in the UK. And you're supposed to be a learned journalist. You are the ridiculous person. Dr. Jason Arday is infinitely more qualified than you, infinitely more brilliant than you, has had an infinitely more positive effect on the general population than you, who does nothing but spreads smear and smut. And yet you're going to sit there and you're going to say, oh, satire and sarcasm bring down ridiculous people. Well, I'm using a lot of satire and sarcasm to bring you down because you are an idiot, sir.
That is what one seeks to do. And I'm trying to work out what I'm personally responsible for. I will try not to repeat that in future.
Okay. I think there is a difference between legitimate, balanced coverage with or without using humor.
She said that with a straight face. Legitimate, balanced coverage. Once again, knowing the numbers. They produced over 100 articles smearing this man. They didn't once allow him to represent his own position. They took the words of a white supremacist for what they were. They did no investigative journalism outside of seeking to find more smear and smut to put upon the name of Dr. Jason Arday. And she calls that legitimate criticism or legitimate journalism. She is a joke.
And sort of cruel and malicious invective, often published with impunity on social media.
Yeah.
Whataboutism. Sorry, let me just say this very quickly. So what she's done there is she's compared their journalism and their publication to shit posts in the comments feeds. That's her justification. Well, people might view us as not being journalistic in our approach, but if you read the comments, this person said Hitler is king. So who's worse? It's like, is that your barometer for what makes for good journalism, by comparing yourself to the stuff that's said, by faceless people in the comments? That should not be the barometer for whether or not you're doing journalism well. You should be embarrassed to make such a stupid comparison. But obviously nothing embarrasses these people, nothing whatsoever. Let me see if I can get that camera back on. Guess who's Bizak? Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I reflected on it, not with a priest, but with my husband, who is always my litmus test, and said, listen.
Okay, no comment.
I feel bad. I'm a member of the media. We covered this extensively on the Telegraph. We did discuss it on the podcast. Have I said unpleasant things about Professor Arday? I was sad because, of course...
She keeps phrasing statements as questions. It's not, have I said unpleasant things about Professor Arday? It's, I have said unpleasant things about Professor Arday. Yeah? So please stop trying to rephrase the certain to make it uncertain. Yeah, you've said unpleasant things. Own your behavior. Take some accountability. For people that love to harp on, literally one of the number one, and since you referenced them, I can bring them up. Number one comments you'll see in the feeds of their vile toxic channels is, oh, he needs to take accountability. Oh, take account. Have you heard them take accountability for anything here? Have you heard her take any accountability for her behavior here? Zero accountability.
Of course, the human being transcends the story, and I had fond memories that I expressed on here. I know this guy has done wrong, but when I met him at question time, he was extremely sweet towards me and my daughter, and that's not often the backstage experience. And this guy was smiley and energetic and showed some support for my daughter, who's quite academic and might make an application to his or another esteemed university in due course, and therefore I left with kind of a fond feeling about him. And I left in awe of the fact that he had suggested that he was a non-verbal and had achieved huge success in academia nonetheless.
So at this point, this is when I think, yeah, this woman really, this Camilla, have you ever met a nice Camilla? Sorry. This Camilla is a real nasty piece of work. I say this because I've got kids, yeah? And it's one thing if people meet me and they're nice to me and they're nasty to me. But I've got this thing, and you tell me in the comments if you're similar. When people are genuinely kind to my kids, they say encouraging words that my children hold on to. They build them up. They say something. I never forget that. It's one of those things that I always file away. Yeah. And that little single act, because you feel it as parents, yeah. When someone's horrible to your kids, it takes a long time for you to forgive that person. Yeah, for a long time you're thinking about assault. Yeah, when people are not nice to your kids, like you said, what? All right, cool. When I see him, yeah, what's gonna, yeah. But it's the reverse. When people are kind to your kids, you always remember it. You're always like, so this Dr. Arday's met her and her daughter on question time. Her daughter's a student, aspiring to go to an Oxford University. He is obviously at Cambridge when this takes place, and he's not only been nice, which she said was kind of like a weird thing to do because a lot of time people aren't that nice and that chatty, but he's also offered really kind words of encouragement, maybe offered his own services to help, to guide her daughter. I don't know. We don't know how far that conversation went. And that act of kindness was not enough for her to even give pause to her behavior in the future, to say, actually, you know what, I've met him, and there's a possibility that the stuff being said about him is not correct, because this is actually a really kind man. Or even let's temper the temperature. Let's temper the sentiment, the rhetoric of the things that we are publishing about this man, because he's a kind man, irrespective of what these other things are saying. I actually think that, knowing English people, and this is going to be purely my speculation here, but having met people like her, I actually think she's not telling us the full story here. I actually think she did meet him, obviously, and he was very kind to her, but I don't think that was good in her part, because a lot of time what you'll get jealousy. Her daughter was someone who was aspiring to go to an institution that he had authority in. And I think in her mind, when she met him, she was thinking, who are you to be making decisions about my daughter's access to that institution? Like, I don't like the idea of having to answer to you. You're younger than me, you little jumped up upstart. Who do you think you are? I think she felt jealousy. And I think that made it easier for her to be nasty. I do, because I've met people like her. Now, I could be wrong, but then someone then pathologized why she would be so quick and willing to jump on the hate train. Showed it literally created, there was zero resistance between her meeting this guy and him being lovely to her for all intents and purposes, and then her being an absolute vile witch to him. That's what I think would have motivated it, because I've seen this kind of jealousy from people like her before on multiple occasions, experienced it firsthand. So that's my fault. She would have preferred a white person to be in that position of authority, is what I'm saying.
The truth of the matter, as I expressed to my husband, is as follows. If the media had not exposed the inconsistencies in his CV and other matters.
There's a difference between exposed and proven. Once again, as a journalist, she knows this, but she doesn't care. Exposed for her is any idiot, any jumped up, hateful twat jumping up and saying, "Oh, guess what he said? He said he ran 60 marathons in 60 days or something, whatever the thingy is. Oh, well, he said that. Oh, that's impossible." That's not an expose, my dear. For an expose, you actually need to have proof. You need to provide something that says this did not happen. This never occurred, which is what you don't do. You guys just create conjecture and then build on your conjecture and then report your conjecture as fact because you're hateful individuals.
Matters, he would probably still be alive today. But if there hadn't have been inconsistencies in his CV and other matters, the media wouldn't have had anything to expose.
Yes.
It's
It didn't expose anything, and this is the thing, and that even that whole thing's a falsehood. Oh, if he wasn't this and wasn't that, the media wouldn't have anything to expose. Excuse me, like, when has that stopped the media? When has someone's backstory being clean? When has someone's resume being clean stopped the media from being absolutely vile to an individual? Did that stop you from driving Princess Diana to her death? Did that stop you from smearing Meghan Markle for eating a flipping avocado or for rubbing her pregnant belly in the wrong way? You guys don't need any kind of justification for hate. You'll find hate where there's no hate to be found, where there's no crime being committed. Respectfully put this kind of like self justifying bullshit aside, because no one is buying it. That's why you turn the comments off, you vile individuals, because you can't stand up. Imagine this, guys. I'm sorry. This is just like infuriating. Imagine that they didn't even have the guts to turn the comments on for an apology because they can't face the criticism after they've spent over 100 articles doing nothing but criticizing this man with impunity. And then when it comes to them possibly being the subject of criticism, they stifle the voice of the people to respond. Do you understand how weedy these people are?
Perfectly legitimate line of journalistic inquiry to probe somebody who has been put up as the poster boy for diversity at Cambridge, been promoted before his time.
Did you hear it there, guys? I did say it, didn't I? Yeah? Being promoted before his time. Okay? So once again, all of that fluff she said earlier, oh, I met him, he was so lovely and wonderful. That's what she was thinking. Oh, you're a bit young for this position, aren't you? Respectfully, have you gone through the appropriate channels? How dare you? Like, good Professor? Do you want me to call you sir?
Actually kind of broken records, both self-appointed and thrust upon him.
Yes.
And who has garnered a huge amount of publicity. It's perfectly legitimate to probe whether that person's claims stand up to scrutiny.
And as a journalist, she'll know that probe in a person's claims, the number one most effective way this is done in the media and has been done historically and which should be done to this day is to invite the person on to talk about the claims that you think are suspicious and allow them to defend themselves. Yeah. You put them in the hot seat. You put them in front of a shit hot journalist, yeah, who'll sit there and ask them the hard questions. In your CV, you said this, Dr. Arday. However, when we checked, we found that this was the case. Are you able to substantiate that? And either he'll be able to substantiate it or he won't. But after you grill him and you put him in the hot seat, that will be it. That's how you probe. Okay, that's what probing is. Probing is not producing 100+ smear and smut articles, printing slop about everything that you can find, any frigging accusation that you can find, and then printing it as though it was proven fact to a general public who don't know any better. That's when you're just liars. Okay, very simple, very simple. And yeah, Mehdi Hassan would have done a great job But no, they don't want that. They don't want truth. They didn't want the opportunity for him to actually be able to defend himself, because then this nasty smear campaign house of cards will have come crashing down quicker than they could have handled.
And we'd expect that of anyone. What we need to be asking ourselves is, was there a feeding frenzy? And what I would always call for is,
Every time she asks a question, she's making a confession. Not was there a feeding frenzy, there was a feeding frenzy. Like, just have some accountability. You must be vile to be married to. Goodness me. You must be a horrendous person. You know, her son. She looks. I mean, she looks like she's probably married to a Robert. Robert, did I slap you? It's a question we need to explore. At the end of the day, that's just the way it goes. Did I slash your car tires? Well, who knows? I think we need to sit down and we need to really unpack this, Robert. Let's get to the crux of this. Yeah. Do I love you anymore? Like, freaking it, man. Let's have some flipping accountability. You flipping psychopath.
is consistency. I am extremely critical of high profile figures in my column. I'm not particularly pleasant about figures on the left and, more recently, the right. But
she sounds like she's probably on this Meghan hate campaign from what she says here. I'm extremely critical of high profile figures. I think this is her routine. Her routine is being vile to people. Being vile to people for no. So she was always going to defend this to the hilt, because this is what she does in a day job. If she apologizes now, that's it. She might as well hand in her resignation. She makes her money being a nasty, vile individual.
I do kind of deplore cancel culture, and you and I were on the same page on this. If you don't want people to be cancelled on the right, you shouldn't then advocate them being cancelled on the left.
And now it's become a right and left argument, which was never the argument. This was never a right and left argument. Okay, this was you guys reproducing the work of a white supremacist and sending it out there like it was fact. Okay, and then literally, digitally lynching an individual because they were black. Okay, me sitting here calling it out is not evidence that I sit on the left. Okay, most people in my comments don't sit on the left. Okay, this is us as black people understanding that you guys are toxically racist, that you guys operate with impunity to do the most heinous things against people who have done no wrong. And where you can't find wrongdoing, you will literally fabricate it or simply reproduce someone who has fabricated it. That's what this is about. Let's be very clear. Let me quickly shout out Kieran. Thank you very much for your $5 donation. He said, in their minds, team white supremacy is up 1 point and team black is now down 1 point. So they won that match and now they wait for the next victim. And we're not going to let this kind of like horrendous white supremacist movement do that. That's the thing. We're going to be on the offensive. I am on the offensive. And on that note, guys, the pinned comment in the chat is the link to the petition, which I would implore you all to sign. Some of you have already come back and said that you signed it. I appreciate that. Let's maybe get it to over 1,000 signatures by the end of this stream. But that petition, with that petition, we're going to see if we can get CPS to launch an investigation into whether or not to bring charges against Nathan Koffness, who I believe is guilty of harassment alongside a slew of other potential crimes. Let's do this, guys. Let's do this together. Let's bring down these. No, we're not on the defensive here. It's not about. This is not about the being on the defensive. This is about us actually ensuring that anybody who wants to repeat this kind of feat with any of our intellectuals in the future are going to face resistance. They're not going to get a free ride. And hopefully, black people in general, the black public, the black community, and black media have learned from this. I hope they've learned to read between the lines, to look beneath the surface, and to double check when someone's being dogpiled upon and not just repeat the nonsense like so many of them did when they had an opportunity not to. Shout out to you, Kieran Grant. I appreciate the donation.
I looked at the whole saga and said, does this really need to be the end of this guy's career? In the same way that you might say the same about the plagiarism scandal that affected the journalist Johan Hari, in the same way that you might say David Starkey, an esteemed academic, a historian whose quote was taken out of context, and he literally lost everything.
Yes, guys, you did hear correctly. She's comparing the Jason Arday saga to David Starkey, the unashamedly, unabashed, open racist who has repeatedly said things that he should have been fired for throughout his entire career. He was fired more recently, around the 2020s, for a comment he said that was incredibly racist. I'm trying to remember it now, as it's gone from my mind. But he said racist things 10 years earlier. Yeah, when he said that, the whites have become black, and that's the reason we're having riots in the UK. These are things that he should have been fired from a long time ago. This man, who's I think a professor of history, highly esteemed, like she says, is also a eugenicist. He sits in the same frame of thought as a Richard Lynn or a Nathan Koffness, where they believe in scientific racism. They all believe in hereditarianism. They all believe in it. Yeah, they all co-sign it. And she's sitting there talking about, oh, his life was absolutely ruined. Yeah, because he was an open racist. Yeah, you have to bring people like that into account, because believe it or not, you stupid toff, but there will be multicultural people in educational institutions. And actually, it's slightly, just a little bit, a conflict of interest if there's a lecturer there who doesn't believe that the black students have the same mental capacity as the white students. Yeah, if they believe that, how can they also be a lecturer? How can they be an objective professor? How can they mark things with objectivity? Obviously, I would not tolerate having a lecturer like that one bit. And you're going to sit there and act like he was this harmless individual. Are you stupid? Now, obviously, we know these people aren't stupid. She's just exposing herself to be the far-right white supremacist that she is. So I'm glad that she's embarrassing herself like this. Let me give a shout out to Crenshaw Grinder. Appreciate you, my Don. He says, black excellence equals white rage. Absolutely. They get angry when black people excel for no reason. You've heard the word anger being used here multiple times. Multiple times. There's only one side of this equation that should have any anger right now. They think their anger is justified. It's the most bizarre thing in the world. In Britain, the rage is polite, but still buried in their soul. Black excellence challenges their identity. I don't think it's polite at all. I think it's maybe mired in dog whistles. And I know what you're saying here. I think it's maybe mild in dog whistles, but hopefully what you've seen from this Jason Arday scandal is that it's incredibly, incredibly aggressive. It's incredibly aggressive. And the thing about the British, where they perhaps differ from anyone else, is that they are relentless. They are relentless. Once they get the smell of blood, they are relentless. They will keep going until they get their victim. I've been saying this for over a week now, guys. I've been saying this for a long time, since before we had any loss of life. I said, these people do not stop until they've taken life. It's not because I'm some prophet. It's because we've seen it over and over again in the UK. This is what they're like. They are relentless when it comes to these things. But shout out to you. Thank you very much for your $5 donation. It's appreciated.
Be consistent left and right, because why wasn't it a feeding frenzy on Starkey? Why weren't people who basically turned a blind eye to his suffering, why are they any better than anyone that's currently being criticised for having a hand, supposedly, in Arday's death?
So she's actually using the fact that there wasn't a feed. So she's saying, why isn't it classified as a feeding frenzy on Starkey? First of all, because there wasn't a feeding frenzy. The number of articles that published it was nowhere near the number of articles that published articles about, the number of outlets that published articles about Arday. And secondly, Starkey was literally a victim, and I say victim, was literally the result of years and years and years and years of open racism. Like, you could just fill up a page of racist quotes by Starkey. He literally got away with murder, not being fired sooner. The amount of times the institutions, I think it was Cambridge was at as well, backed this guy up. Yeah, the amount of times these institutions said, no, we're not going to fire him, until they got to the point where it's kind of like, well, it's untenable. You just said, I think he said something along the lines of black people in gas chambers or somewhere. I have to remember or find out, because we're live like now, I can't find the quote for you. But it was so vile. It's kind of like, mate, we can't help you anymore. Like, we tried our best, but you're taking the mick now. You're doing too much. You can't say that. You can't talk about unaliving these people. Like, that's too much. Like, we can't, that's no longer academically kind of like, we can't justify it. Like, we've justified everything else that you said. And she's sitting there like, oh, more people should have come to his defense. You know, why wasn't no one calling out feeding? Like, how dare you? What's wrong with these people, man? What's wrong with these people? She's a horrible person, man.
Having been excoriating about myself, I will defend myself. And I did say at the time, he will be going through hell, which is why I said people need to be careful. That concern was never shown to my friend David Starkey.
No.
He must be going through hell. That concern was never shown to my friend David Starkey. I'm sorry, was he going through hell? He got fired, yeah? He didn't get hounded by the media. It got literally the amount of media coverage that someone getting fired from an institution gets. He didn't have the press hounding him, making him seem like an idiot, taking a fine-tooth comb through all of his research, making sure that he hadn't done this and done that, looking at his... He didn't get any of that. He didn't have people dreading up all of his racism from the past, etc. He literally got fired and got a nice, quiet go away. Like, what are you talking about? Like, these people are so disingenuous. It's horrendous to watch.
No, nobody cared about him.
Who went through exactly the same experience.
They just said exactly the same experience there. I'm not going to comment on that, guys.
Had all of his honors and his positions taken away from him.
He literally...
That's called getting fired. He didn't have his honors taken away from him. No one attempted to get rid of his PhD. No one attempted to question his qualifications. It's not the same thing. An idiot like this, it gets worse, guys.
As he said to me quite recently, I lost everything.
He did, yes.
And people later who did not support him publicly or privately have only more recently sort of said, listen, you were caught up in the madness of 2020.
So this has now started at being a fake, disingenuous apology to Jason Arday, to a eulogy for David Starkey's career. It's now become an honorary eulogy for the career of the most openly publicized racist white academic in the UK. I'm not saying he's the most racist. I'm saying he's the most openly publicized racist white academic in the UK. He's literally famous for being racist in terms of his academic contributions, yeah? He's famous for being open racist. And they're now using this, the death of Dr. Jason Arday, to eulogize the career of David Starkey. You can't make this up, guys. Like, how to say I'm a white supremacist without saying I'm a white supremacist?
And actually now, in retrospect, I think you were treated too harshly. That's no good 6 years on.
Yes.
And actually, in the case of Starkey, in the case of Arday, where the institutions that abandon these people, the institutions that suddenly drop them like a stone, what responsibility do they have to bear over the well-being of the person that they want?
See, what she doesn't seem to understand, I think what she does understand, but because she's on her disingenuous rant, is that every institution and workplace, yeah, will have a code of conduct. Okay, do you know what a code of conduct is, Camilla? You disingenuous, horrible corpse of a woman. Do you know what a code of conduct is? Yeah, it means that you have to conduct yourself in a way that doesn't reflect badly upon the institution. Okay. This means that when you disparage an entire race of people for no other reason than the color of their skin, when you disparage other people's cultures, you're normally bringing yourself into conflict with the said code of conduct. They'll say, you can't say sexist things and work here. Okay, that's going against our policy. David Starkey was not fired because the media picked up false accusations about him and amplified those false accusations for the entire world to see over and over and over again. He was fired because everybody agrees what he said was totally out of pocket. no one, like everyone said, well, that's out of pocket. And everyone probably looked at the university and said, like, are you going to keep this guy? He's clearly out of pocket. And they said, yeah, no, we've done what we can. We're going to get rid of him. That's why he was fired. They're not even, the two cases aren't even at parity, not even in the slightest. And the reason you know she's being so disingenuous is because she probably also knows about Professor William O'Reilly, who I've covered extensively on this channel, who actually was someone who is comparative. And they know they've never, or probably very rarely, but I'm not sure if Telegraph have ever even published an article about William O'Reilly, who is a convicted plagiarizer, openly admitted plagiarizer, and has been accused of sexual assault and has been implicated in the cover-up of sexual assault crimes that have taken place in his department, which I think was it Emmanuel College? I think it's Emmanuel College that he was the head of. So notice that they don't mention any of that. These people are on another level when it comes to how disingenuous they are.
Celebrated. There is a parallel here. Starkey, the historian, he's the king of Cambridge. I know he's not a black young professor, but his name was in lights. Cambridge cashed in.
Once again, she's saying he's not a black young professor and trying to play this false kind of like race card analogy that a lot of these insecure white people like to play. Oh, yeah, no, he's not a young black professor. If he was, you'd hire him in a minute. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, are you freaking kidding me? Do you know? Do you think that all organizations have just got this kind of like pocket of jobs that they're reserving for black people? Do you think like all educational institutions kind of like, no, you can't touch that. That's for the blacks. Yeah. This one's for the blacks. Yeah. Manager, MD, that's for the blacks. Yeah. We want a black MD. Said no board ever. You know, it'd be a really good idea. Let's get much more black people into middle management. Said no English organization ever. You know what would make this university better? If we had if all of the top professors were black. Said no university ever. What is she even talking about? Like, what's wrong with these people, man? Like, they literally present the world in the opposite of the reality that we know we all live in. And the worst thing is, insecure white nationalists always parrot this as well, like it's some truth. Oh, playing the black card again. Oh, there you go. There's a black card. Oh, I wish I was black. I'd love to play that card and get a job really easy. Like, in what reality are you seeing this? Send me to that reality. I want to go to the universe. I want to go to the universe where I play this magical black card and all of a sudden I'm favorite for position, because all of the data suggests that if you have a Nigerian surname like you, they go, no, we don't need any fraud here. And your application gets thrown out the window. Do you know how many applications I have to make if I'm ever in that field? Like, do you know how many applications I have to make? I have to make hundreds, yeah, just to get a call back, yeah, because of my Nigerian surname. It's like, you know, we were doubtful about you, but yeah, you're not like the rest of them, I tell you. And these people are acting like it's some flipping benefit. Like, what world are they living in, man? This is crazy.
On Starkey's fame, he was the world's foremost expert on the Tudors, and oh my goodness, didn't Cambridge love the cachet of that? How many very talented students have ended up at Cambridge studying history because of Professor Starkey? Similarly with Arday, you put them up.
Still going on about Starkey, by the way, guys. If you didn't notice, guys, yes, they are talking about David Starkey. They're literally using this opportunity to talk about David Starkey
On a pedestal. If you're going to cash in that much on that person's celebrity and then they fall off that pedestal, if you aren't there to catch them, who on earth is?
Yes.
And I'm not applying this, by the way, to Lord Woolley.
So just out of interest, in her world, who deserves to get fired? Like, racism against blacks ain't a crime. Okay, it's fine. It's not a problem at all. You know, it's not a problem at all. Like, who deserves to get fired in their world? Because we know that they don't fire in Cambridge. They don't fire people for actual plagiarism, proven plagiarism. They don't fire people for sexual assault. They don't fire people clearly for racism. Like, do they have any standards? It's kind of like, oh, well, this professor has unalived 3 students last year. Maybe we should bring him in front of the disciplinary board, see if there's anything to answer for. It's like, well,
who is the head of that college, because he says he felt hounded to death, his words, and he couldn't see a way out. Diane said to him, she held his hand and said, "We will help you to get through this." But on that day, we saw a man half his body weight and desperate beyond belief. Now, Lord Willie is pointing the finger at the media, and I'm sure there are going to be the inevitable calls from hacked off types and others about Leveson 2.0. Okay, let's just await those calls. And I'm not at all suggesting this of Lord Willie. Clearly, on a personal level, he and his wife reached out to Professor Arday, and thank goodness they did that. Where was everyone else at Cambridge? Because typically,
can you believe the temerity of this woman? This woman is really a wicked witch. I have to state, this woman really is a wicked witch. So everyone's pointing the finger at, rightly so, at the media, yeah, because Cambridge aren't the media, they're the employer. Okay, so their job was to employ the individual, which they did. Okay, and their job, and they didn't, the where they failed him was opening that investigation and kind of ceding to the pressure. And they probably had a conversation with him saying, look, we're going to open the investigation. It's just to kind of like, but he probably felt incredibly betrayed by that, regardless of how they tried to spin it to him. Because I think they knew that he was not guilty of any wrongdoing and that the investigation was not going to bring back anything condemning. But he probably felt incredibly betrayed by that. And then she's trying to spin it like, oh, where were they? Like, what did you expect them to do? Like, I don't understand. How are they going to counter the narrative that you were putting out, which was literally hundreds of articles? And she knows this because, oh, you know, inevitably there's going to be the calls to answer for what, like, because you've done it before. That's why you're saying inevitably. This is a woman who doesn't feel any guilt. When Caroline Flack took her own life, I guarantee you this woman's probably done a couple of articles, and I guarantee you that this is her coping mechanism. She doesn't feel any guilt. She doesn't feel any guilt. She feels like I did the right thing. This woman is really nasty. Really horrible, nasty woman.
typically, let's use Hugh Edwards as an example. Different. I mean, Hugh Edwards actually convicted of extremely serious crimes. A process kicks in whereby lawyers or representatives on behalf of Edwards say, listen, the headlines have broken. This man has been suspended from his job. He is now in a very vulnerable condition. Can we just advise all media, cease and desist? No, his wife doesn't want to give a comment on or off the record. Leave us alone. And it's either said on the record or off the record. He is suffering from severe mental health problems.
See, so she thinks it's the university's job to circulate to the media what Dr. Arday's mental health was, like they didn't know. As far as I know, we were all aware that he is a neurodivergent. We were all aware that he was autism. And I think in his resignation letter, he made multiple claims about being literally at the end of his tether, saying it's become mentally unbearable. You've put on more on me than any human is able to withstand. It's too much. This is like crazy. So she's saying that his words, his own confession that he can't handle what was taking place, his own words about him being in a state of mental instability as a result of their hounding, that's not enough. It's supposed to have come. They only would have listened if it came from Cambridge. Why? This is not a justification for anything. This is like whataboutism on crack. Are you stupid? The man told you in his own words he couldn't take anymore. This woman's horrible. Honestly, this woman is like literally horrible.
Everyone lay off. I don't know why that process didn't kick in this case. It was hinted at. The Cambridge authorities, as far as I'm aware, didn't issue such statements either on or off the record to the country's media.
Well, instead they lent into it's racist to criticize him. And the problem with that defense is we were finding demonstrable proof that he...
This is hard to listen to, man. These people are absolutely vile, man. Seriously, these people are absolutely vile. It's so hard to listen to because this is where, as we watch this, you start to, it invites us into the world of Dr. Arday, where it's kind of like, it actually doesn't matter what I say, what I'm able to prove, they're just going to keep talking. Do you understand what I mean? It's kind of like in through one ear, out the other. Oh, I felt a little bit of guilt, but at the end of the day, we had all the evidence we needed. Like, these people don't change their minds once they've made their minds up. He must have just felt like he was in like hell. Like when these people get a hard on, it's like there's nothing that you can do to stop them. They just become rapacious. It's like, it's wild listening to them talk.
He had misled people, and so it wasn't racist, and the defense wasn't good enough. And there is a question of duty of care here. I mean,
So 1 second, you've gone from plagiarism now to he's misled people, okay? And racism defense isn't good enough. What is the, in your world, what is the penalty for misleading people? Even though you're wrong, let's assume you're correct and he's misled people. I'm sorry, what's the penalty for that crime? You think it's proportionate that because he misled people that you do 100 articles on him as opposed to 1 article, which is what normally would be the case, or even invite him for an interview to face the accusations of being misleading? You think it's proportionate to cover him with more veracity and with less regard than you've covered serial killers, than you've covered Donald Trump, that you've cut, like the way you, like, what in this constitutes good journalism in your view? Tim, you tool.
I come back to my criticisms of Cambridge. I've been a student at Cambridge. I've suffered with my mental health at Cambridge. And that was 20 years ago. I hope it has improved. But part of the problem with the institution is it's a place where academics manage academics. And academics are not very good at that. I mean, some academics are, again, this may have changed. Forgive me if I'm out of touch. But back when I was teaching, I received no training in teaching. You get none.
What?
Why you don't get any training to supervise? No one teaches you how to do it. It's just assumed that because you're a very clever person, you can just go into a classroom and do it. As I say, that may have changed. To go back to the point about David Starkey, I would never say to David, who infamously referred to black people as damned blacks. He was talking about if there had been a genocide of black people, there wouldn't be so many damned blacks in Europe today.
Okay, so Tim, you idiot. You absolutely, so that's the quote, yeah? And they're going to say that that quote's taken out of context because all they can hear is the phrase damned blacks. No one cares about the word damn in that sentence, you stupid, mentally deficient, dishonest piece of crap. The implication and the insinuation of that statement is if there had really been a genocide, we would have got rid of all of the blacks. We wouldn't have any to worry about. That's what he was saying there. So that's what people are offended by. It's not by the presence of the word damned. That's not what makes that sentence, excuse the pun, damning, you absolute idiot. It's the implications that he's saying that the job done wasn't thorough enough. And if it was done more thoroughly, we wouldn't have to deal with any blacks whatsoever. That's why it's insulting. It doesn't matter if you rephrase it and get rid of the word damned. You stupid Morton. Tim, you're a dolt. You actually are an idiot. For someone, it's scary that you've taught in because you clearly are very dumb. You're either dumb or you're just very dishonest because there's no middle ground here. For you to try and justify a quote like that from David Starkey and act like it was entirely innocent. Oh, they took the word damned out of context. Did they take did they take what he was implying out of context? What's wrong with these people, man?
I would never say to David personally, yeah, you were misrepresented there.
Yeah.
No, because what
that
he
was
said,
the right terminology. Well done,
right.
David.
No,
it wasn't.
No, because it was the wrong thing to say. It doesn't matter to me, though. This is all about.
It doesn't matter to him, though. But yeah, no one's shocked by that. Explain why it doesn't matter to you, just out of interest. I want to hear this.
This is what our society and what crowds don't do, which is the operation of moral discernment and personal responsibility. Morally, what he did was wrong. What is my personal responsibility? Behind the scenes, it is to be kind.
It's to be kind. Were you kind to Dr. Arday? So here's the massive contradiction. Yeah. Morally, what he did was wrong. What's my responsibility is to be kind. So your 100+ articles about Dr. Arday, defaming him, mocking him, being sarcastic, yeah, all of those things you've actually admitted to, being rude about him, denigrating his achievements, that was you showing a kindness. Was that you showing a kindness? Is this multiverse of madness with Wanda sending the monster and being like, oh yeah, that was a kindness? I could have been like, is this you being kind to him? Like, what I'm trying to understand. There's nothing that these guys say where they don't contradict themselves in the following sentence, because there's nothing that's genuine about these people. It's just lie upon lie upon lie.
And to be there for him. And that applies to people who've done actually really bad things, including like prisoners.
Yes.
People don't abandon people. And one reason why they don't abandon them is because if you do abandon them, which is what often happens in a cancellation, they have nowhere else to go.
No.
And that is why when people start to consider doing very, very dark things. Now, on your point about the behavior of the media, what people have to understand about journalism is journalism operates within ethical parameters. And
we're not doing this anymore, guys. We're gonna wrap it up there, because I'm not gonna start hearing them talk about the coverage was ethical, and as a journalist we needed to cover. Guys, it was dogpiling. Okay, the numbers are in, and most of the stuff you printed was false. So we just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore, guys. I actually really apologize that I even put you through that. I got further than I did on first watch. How many minutes in did we get? We got 16 minutes in. That was like 60% further than when I tried to watch this by myself. Guys, seriously, I've reached my limit, and I'm sure you guys must be sick of this. I can't watch any more of this. Literally, I can't watch anymore. I'm done. So I hope you were informed. The whole point of me doing this live stream is because I wanted to show you how unrepentant, how disingenuous, how callous, how dishonest, how vile, and how disgusting the British media are. And I think that proved it. We didn't even need to go out and watch other videos. You got to watch two journalists, as someone said quite rightly, fillet each other about how perfect they've been in the way they attacked this entire situation, and how they've got nothing to feel sorry about. And actually the only people who should be feeling any guilt are Cambridge University and Dr. Arday himself. They have no ability to repent, no ability to retract, no ability to even reflect on their own behavior. They are absolutely disgusting. So let me tell you something. Camilla, Tomini, Tim Stanley, fuck you. Sorry guys, excuse my French. I'm out of here. Catch you on the next one. Let me give a quick shout out to Kieran and Crenshaw Grinder. Guys, I'm really sorry. I know you've heard me use more bad words in this last week and a half than I've probably used in the entirety of my life as a streamer, but this just gets worse and worse every time I cover something. I wasn't expected to be that bad. I'm out of here, guys. Catch you later. Peace.